Hello, I'm Natalie Ryan Hebert, founder of the Red Tent Program for Premenstrual Dysphoric Disorder, and I'm here with Paula, who is kindly offering to share her story too of working in the Red Tent with me. So, hi Paula.
Hi.
So thank you very much for offering to come and speak today about your journey, because the more people can hear each other's stories, then I think the more hope there can be, an inspiration that you don't have to live with premenstrual dysphoria until menopause or until you get a hysterectomy, or and that there is a way that doesn't require birth control or antidepressants or surgery to overcome it. So that's my message, as you know, and it's so lovely to have others sharing that message with me. So I just wanted to ask you to share with everybody where you were and how you found out about premenstrual dysphoria and what symptoms you were experiencing, if you don't mind sharing.
I learned what PMDD was and learned that I had it at the same time. So I had been struggling with kind of premenstrual irritability and anxiety and depression for actually, I don't even know how long. So I was on birth control for a really long time. So it only really kind of manifested when I decided to go off birth control. So my husband had a vasectomy and I didn't need it anymore. So it made sense to not go on it. You know, it's associated with risk of cancer, and in a woman my age, it just made sense. I didn't need it. And then it just turned into this kind of nightmare where every month, you know, he would try and get kind of closer to me because I was pulling away. Then the closer he would get, the more I would push. And we would discuss it like a lot, because sort of the day that my period started, I would go back to me, to the person that he knew and fell in love with, and the person I considered to be me.
Yeah.
You know, so it was kind of a struggle, and we realized that it was a premenstrual issue, and it just seemed kind of extreme, but it just was the way it was, right? Like, women suffer, and so this is just my suffering. So I think we were just sitting on the couch, like watching TV, just kind of an average night. And I was scrolling through Instagram, and one of the people I follow on Instagram, just, you know, apropos of nothing, it just kind of popped up on her feed. PMDD is not just a severe form of PMS. And I thought, what is this? What is PMDD? I've never heard of it before. I'm a medical scientist. You know, you'd think that I would have heard of it, but I haven't. So we looked it up, the very first page we get to, and it was like a list of symptoms, boom, 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 boom. I think 8 out of 10, and I could tick them off right then. Like, oh my God, this is it. You know, like, this kind of explains it. And there was already like a weight kind of lifted, just knowing, oh, okay, I'm not crazy. Like, I don't have some kind of, there isn't something inside me. It's just this thing that I can deal with. And I think like the week later, or maybe 2 weeks later, but very close to that event, I saw the post that you had put on, I can't remember the Facebook group now, but a Facebook group that we were both part of. And I was like, oh, wow, it's serendipity, right? Like,
yeah.
I have this thing, it's really causing a problem with me. And you kind of had an answer. I didn't know if it was the answer, but you had an answer. It was something that I could do something about it. I didn't have to just suffer. So, yeah.
And I think it's so true that, you know, undiagnosed PMDD is worse than diagnosed PMDD, because at least you can say, okay, I know where it is, I can track it, I can see what's coming, I can warn those around me, and I can put in these kind of coping strategies for that time. So just knowing the building awareness of that there is something called premenstrual dysphoric disorder, and it does affect 1 in 20 women. And if you're having real struggles, then this might be it. And that alone is like, whew. And that's kind of the first step. I remember getting that to myself. But then I felt, I think, and I've said this to your girls in the group, I'm sure, my husband said, look, it might not be your fault, but it is your responsibility to master this, which made me really cross at the time, because I thought, you try and master this, it's not that easy. But he was right. And it was that coming to that realization that it's going to have to be me that masters this thing. You know, I can stay in victimhood if I want to and say, well, it's not my fault because I've got PMDD, but I didn't really want to go on doing that. And when I got to that point, my teacher appeared too, serendipitously, in the form of Marissa Peer and rapid transformational therapy and everything. So that's the short version of my story, and then why I created the Red Tent to specifically offer rapid transformational therapy and metacognitive psychology to women who were in the same position as I was in. So you find me and you find out that I've got this thing called the Red Tent, which I just begun actually when you found it. So what happens next?
You know, we did our RTT session, and I think that for me, that was kind of the biggest thing. You know, the RTT session, my life changed that minute. Yeah, I think the minute I walked out of your house, it was gone. It was the most remarkable thing. And, you know, to say that it's a kind of a rapid transformation is an understatement. It was an instantaneous thing for me. So that was kind of the turnaround thing. And you had told me about the Red Tent that you were setting up at the time. And I was really keen to be involved because, you know, it was this incredible moment for me. And I really wanted to kind of examine a little deeper, you know, just the idea that I have these beliefs from my childhood and that they are still affecting me. Like, okay, this is something that if I can dig into it, then that can only be a good thing. You know, the stuff that we uncovered in the RTT, and I've spoken about this a lot, they were so small, these tiny little inconsequential things that had happened in my childhood, and they had such a large effect on me. So I was really keen to kind of dig in a little deeper and to try and understand how I get in my own way, you know. And I think we all get it in our own way, not just with relation to PMDD, but in other things. And as you know, I send everybody to you. I think anybody who comes to me and they're like, oh, I'm struggling with this thing, I'm like, oh, RTT is the thing, you should definitely do it. I'm a firm believer, you know, even at the beginning, I was quite skeptical. I'm a firm believer now. So I wanted to dig in a little bit deeper, and I was part of the first Red Tent group, which was great, you know, and it's just such a lovely group of women, and it was so nice to kind of be part of something where I could understand what they were going through, even though we all had different challenges.
Yes.
There was really a sense that we kind of understood each other, and we were all kind of heading in the same direction. We had this goal, and I think that was really, really lovely.
Yeah, you've got that on the same track, but you're not there to sort of whinge about your situation and have everyone validate how hard it is. You're on a healing path together, and you know you are. And of course, challenges can come up, but there's always, but we're moving forward. And what can I learn from this? And what is this trying to show me? And it's a completely different way of approaching it. And all over the world too is this lovely feeling of, you're just like me, but you're in Berlin, or you're in Australia, or you're in the US, and you know, get this international feeling. We've all got our own
stuff. The appreciation that actually in my case what I had was mild. You know, it was a big deal for me, and it was a big deal for my family, my relationship. But then to kind of hear stories from people where suicide is a real thing, like this is something that people are actually contemplating, that for them this time is such a burden, it's such a weight. It was a realization for me that, you know, this isn't just that you're irritable with your husband, this is so much more, you know. And I can see, looking back, you know, my husband is great and he's really lovely, but I can see looking back at other relationships that this has been in the way. You know, so, but kind of an appreciation that, oh wow, you are so lucky, you're on this healing path with these women who are experiencing the full spectrum. You know, you kind of get to see PMDD in its kind of its full sort of force in this group, and kind of appreciate that even though we're all at different points and we're all sort of experiencing things differently, it is the same. You are the same. You know, you can support each other. And, you know, I've never contemplated suicide, thankfully, fortunately, but I can support somebody who is.
Yeah.
You know, I can support a woman and say, look, I've been there. I didn't experience it like this, but I've been there. And I know that from my side, these tools, they work. You know, and if all you get out of this is that you don't contemplate that anymore, you don't contemplate kind of checking out completely, you don't feel that that's the thing, that's great.
It's incredible how just changing a belief in your subconscious mind changes kind of everything, that you don't realize it's a lens that
Yeah.
you're seeing your whole life through.
Yeah.
And you've got all these protective measures in place that don't actually need to be there anymore, that maybe a 4-year-old or a 7-year-old or a 9-year-old set up to
Yeah.
protect you from whatever it was that you went through in your past. And like you say, it doesn't need to have been a huge thing. So many say, but I really had a traumatic childhood, I don't have, who am I to be depressed or anxious, or who am I to even have this? I haven't really been through anything.
Yeah.
Of course, I have many clients who have been through
Sure.
very obvious trauma, but it's, it isn't what happens to you, it's what you interpret it to mean, and then what you hold on to, that is actually what you're living with now. The past is over, no matter what you went through. Who do you believe you are, and what do you believe you need to protect yourself from?
Yeah. Yeah.
And what part of, and there's that shame as well. I'm not enough and I need to hide that.
Yeah.
I think that was something that you were experiencing. That's why for you,
Yeah.
when your partner wanted to come close, you're like, no, not so close, not so close, because then you might see the real me. And I don't know if that's quite palatable, which of course it is, and it's that realization, I'm enough, that really everybody comes to at the end. It's the same for everyone, no matter what your journey's been. It's realizing I didn't believe I was enough, really didn't. And now I know that I am, all the way down. That causes the big shift. And it is as quick as finding out Santa Claus isn't real. People think, how can it happen so fast? No. How do you believe in Santa Claus? And no. And how long did that take you? Did it take you months of therapy to work through dropping that belief? No, the second you see the truth, you can't unsee it. And really that's as simple as it is, and as complex too, because it's not as, you can't really just do it for yourself with your conscious mind. You do need someone to facilitate it, but at the end of the day, it's you who rescues you, Yeah.
Which I think is the kind of the great, the kind of the power of the program, actually, because the RTT is this rapid thing. You really do just, for me at least, honestly, the minute I walked out of your door, I knew that I was changed forever. So, but the program actually gives you the tools then to deal with other challenges that come up, and I still use them, not all of them, but I still use a lot of them. My dad died last year, and I told you about it, but I can't even remember what you called it now, but I call it my thought room. So where you construct this place in your mind where you only have one door, and your thoughts can only enter through this door, and you place them in a nice comfortable chair, and you deal with them as you can, and when you're ready, and they don't rule you anymore. And so I use that quite a lot. And after my dad died, I could go to my thought room, and my dad is there. And if he is, where else would he be? Because he lives on in my thoughts, right? But it was very upsetting, of course, to lose my dad, but having that was such a comfort, so even though it's not related to my PMDD, of course, and but it still was, it was this kind of tool that you gave us as part of this program that I applied to this other stress in my life. And I think that that's a really great thing to sort of learn that, okay, maybe not all of these things are going to be for you. Maybe you'll find some kind of other way to apply them, but knowing about them and being able to apply them means that you have this kind of capacity that you didn't have before. And what a wonderful thing. What a wonderful gift, actually, to give the women on your program.
The realization that you don't have to think every thought that comes into your head. I don't think I realized that maybe 10 years ago, even maybe 5 years ago. It's just sort of thoughts there, I'm going to think it now. Instead of understanding, well, I am the person, I'm the one that watches my thoughts. I am pure presence, and I can get involved and engaged in that thought if I want to, or I don't have to. You can't control the thoughts that pop into your head, but you can control what you then do with them. And that is just such a freedom to put you back in control of your own mind and build that presence. The more you do it, the more present you become, the more aware you become of negative thinking popping up, and being able to just, I'm just going to let that go and not engage with it. And I think the more you do that, you actually are training your mind in what sort of thoughts you're interested in. What you give your attention to is going to expand. Sort of like your subconscious is throwing up these mega checks going, what do you think of this one? What do you think of this idea? What do you think of that feeling? Or what do you think of this situation? And it's checking your response in a way to see, do I keep this belief here? Or do you want me to change it? So I think the train of thought's about. It's sort of just checking its program settings, going, is this all still good? Still want to keep all of this? So you do have power consciously to say, actually, no, I want to let that one go and I want to direct my mind towards something else. So yeah, that's another really important part. But again, if you've got all this deep wounded pain inside, the quality of the thoughts coming up are going to be painful and insecure and not good enough and unworthy and all this stuff. And it's really hard to fight it, especially when the thoughts come and then the emotions quickly follow, and then you're hijacked by those emotions, and it's very difficult to overcome them. So the red tent covers both sides, doesn't it? You've got the RTT to heal the wounds. So the quality of thoughts that come up are very different. I have clients who say, some of the old thoughts pop up, but I see them, I go, no, it's not true for me anymore.
Yeah.
And then they have also that developed presence that gets bigger and bigger, which is able to see the thoughts and direct them. And so the two together, I think, is really powerful.
Really powerful.
Yeah. So it's been over a year since, is it now? Well over, isn't it? It's well over a year since you finished. And so I can imagine, I always think that it's like a cumulative snowball, because it's the trajectory, that's a tricky word for me, trajectory. You've shifted your coordinates now, I see. So you would have been over here, but you shifted, and so now you're here. So how do you feel? I know you can't really imagine how life would have been if that trajectory had continued, but how do you think your life has changed?
We've just been talking about sort of lockdown and Corona, and my husband and I we live in a 2-bedroom apartment in the center of Copenhagen. Our opportunities to kind of get away from each other are limited. So I can well imagine that if I was still kind of behaving the way I was before, if I was still required, actually what for me was a 2-week period of being completely isolated, very nearly. At this time, that would be impossible. I don't think that, he is great and he's really patient, but I don't think that our relationship would stand this, to be frank. And I suspect that there are many relationships that are actually in that position right now, where, to be kind of stuck together for such a long period of time is really problematic. So I can imagine that this would be a very, very different experience had I not seen you. But, I haven't experienced PMDD symptoms. I think I had like a bit of a wobble kind of during the red tent. I remember just one of our sessions, I was like, it's awful. But I haven't really had one since. Yeah. And what I've noticed is, sort of through my father's illness and his death, my stress levels are quite high, and stress was always a trigger before. The more stressed I was, and the worse the episode would be. Yeah, definitely. And I haven't had that. I've kind of been able to sort of rationalize that I am, of course, stressed, and I am, of course, upset, and I've been able to accept kind of care from Daryl, from my husband, which I couldn't before. So I think that it's like the person that I was kind of from my period until the start of PMDD, that is who I am now. And I'm much more open to being loved. Yeah. Even when I'm stressed, even when I'm kind of in a period where before I would be like, oh, could you just, like, if you could just leave, that would be great. If you could just leave me here alone to suffer on my own, that would be awesome. And now I'm like, you know what, I'm suffering, and I don't feel great. I don't feel good about myself. I don't feel good about what's going on. And then Daryl's like, okay, well, come, have a cuddle. Like, we can't make it better, but we can make now better.
It's just wonderful. And so anything else that you'd like to share? I know, I don't even have to say hypothetically you came across someone that you, because I know you do it already, recommend.
I highly recommend RTT. I would strongly recommend the red tent. I think, even though I actually think that the RTT for many, many people will kind of get you over. If doing the red tent program, I think if that is possible, and it's something that you really are interested in kind of digging a little bit deeper. I can imagine that maybe not everybody needs to do that or wants to do that, but I think if there is a kind of a curiosity there about how you work on the inside, and how you can, take control over some of those things, how you can, kind of give yourself the space to heal, and kind of give yourself that kind of mental capacity, build that mental capacity to deal with all kinds of other challenges. That absolutely, I recommend it like wholeheartedly, and I think that from my point of view, I still go back to some of the things that we did, and the kind of the thought room I use quite a lot, but some of the other tools I kind of only use if I really feel like I need them and I need to go back. But I do go back, and I've spoken to a number of different people. The thought room I spread a lot, so I suspect a lot of people, even though they probably don't understand the way I kind of explain it, but I try to convince people that it really is a tool that you can use to just quiet things down a little bit, and if you're feeling really stressed, then just bring it all down. And kind of once you've settled all of your thoughts a little bit, then you can kind of move forward. It doesn't matter what your challenges are. So, I recommend the red tent specifically. Build up this toolbox of things that you can use. None of us go through life without challenges. I don't know anybody who's been so fortunate to kind of sail through or breeze through. So yeah, I think if you're not suffering from PMDD, this is a way that you can investigate your kind of your inner workings, your inner mind.
If you can't if you can't quite do the whole program, if you can't afford it, then at the very least, don't just do nothing. At least do the RTT element, because that, for so many of the women in the program, that first session is like pulling out a really painful, pussy covered thorn and allowing things to heal over. And yeah, that first session is the real kicker.
It is a remarkable thing, but I would say that if doing the Red Tent program, I think if that is possible, and it's something that you really are interested in kind of digging a little bit deeper, I can imagine that maybe not everybody needs to do that or wants to do that, but I think if there is a kind of a curiosity there about how you work on the inside, and how you can, take control over some of those things, how you can, kind of give yourself the space to heal, and kind of give yourself that kind of mental capacity, build that mental capacity to deal with all kinds of other challenges. That absolutely, I recommend it like wholeheartedly, and I think that from my point of view, I still go back to some of the things that we did.
Everyone comes because of the premenstrual dysphoria. That's what gets you here.
Yeah.
But you leave with far more than I don't have PMDD anymore, which is of course in itself priceless, because life without that is just so different. But that's sort of just a side effect of the healing that you have inside yourself, that your self-worth and self-love, self-esteem, confidence, everything becomes whole again. And how that affects your whole life, that being able to just have your own opinion of yourself as the most important one. It kills people pleasing. You don't need to do that anymore. You don't need to look outside yourself. You don't rely on, is my career going really, really well?
Yeah.
You're enough, and great if it's going well, but I'm still enough. And I think, that's such a calming feeling to always have that self-assuredness that's self-sourced, and you don't need it from outside. And the irony is that the more you do love yourself, the more you can let love you. Of course, come love me, because I'm happy for you to see me with all my snot and my tears in my middle of my grief here, because I know that I'm lovable and worthy of this love and care. And you're able to just show up completely soft-bellied. Here's my underbelly, and you can see me, and because there's no shame anymore about not being good enough. So yeah, that's another big thing. So yeah, but thank you so much. We're around about half an hour, so that will that's perfect. But thank you so much for sharing your story, Paula.
I think anybody listening out there where this is maybe the first time you've even heard of PMDD, if like me, this is how you discover that this is something that you actually are going through, then reach out.